Hello. Disney's Snow White. It is a movie that came out. It is a movie that exists. It is a movie that we all collectively survived, except for the few that didn't.
Imagine there's no heaven.
And it is all over now, thankfully. And we can move on to newer things to be completely outraged about online, but not before I make the exact same mistake as the Walt Disney Corporation and try and mine this IP for views.
Gaming Cookie Guy
Entertainment.
So I sat down to watch 2025's Snow White remake without actually having ever had the chance to see the 1937 version, which means I'm amongst the first generation of people that can even say that can say that they watched the remake of Snow White before Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And yes, I did want to see the original, but also at the same time, I thought that this might give me some new, fresh perspective on the property, having absolutely no nostalgia for the original, but it didn't do that. All it really did was left me with a bunch of questions. Questions like, why did Snow White fall asleep in the middle of this random house? Why did the queen give the huntsman a box and she told the huntsman to put something in the box? But then when the huntsman brought back the box, it was just empty, but the queen didn't bother to check. So why give him the box in the first place? Why is there this whole subplot about Snow White's father that goes absolutely nowhere and it lasts so long into the movie? And why was there no original music? I thought the original movie had more music. Was there only 2 songs? Why does everything sound like it's from Dear Evan Hansen? And so on. Questions like these. Now, since this newer movie was a remake, I just assumed that these questions would still persist in the new version. They just couldn't find answers for them, so they just left them alone. They left them unchanged. But no, basically every one of the things I brought up has an answer in the original movie, and they omitted it from the new one. I don't really get it. I'm not saying that the original one's a better movie though, because it too left me with a whole lot of questions and not a ton of answers. Did we really need a significant portion of this movie's runtime dedicated to personal hygiene? And is that really how the evil queen was defeated? Snow White is pretty much off screen at the time. And also, who is that man? Who is that just pervert tramping through the woods? What? And so after watching both versions of this movie, it became absolutely clear to me that this is a movie that never should have been remade. I don't blame the writers of the remake at all, because what were they supposed to do? Snow White as an IP has been iterated on to death. There's nothing new you can do with it, or you'd have to throw out the entire original movie and make something completely new. But also, you're kind of beholden to the original movie because you're Disney remaking that original movie. But that original movie is so out of touch with modern filmmaking, modern sensibilities, that it's also impossible to do a faithful recreation of that. So you're left in this kind of nowhere zone between the past and the future. And at the end, you have no movie. And when I thought about that, that's what I realized I was feeling while watching this remake. I was watching a movie struggle against itself, ripping itself apart, trying to bridge this generational divide. Having said all that, there are good things that I like about each of these movies individually. In the original, I love the music. I love all the imagery. I appreciate that the dwarves were more of a focus, more of characters, even if they were still relegated to comic relief. And in the new movie, I actually liked how much context we got surrounding the story and the queen's rise to power. I especially liked that we got to know Snow White's love interest, Jonathan, and I thought it ended really strongly with love and kindness being what wins the day. And so it made me start thinking, is there a synthesis of these two movies that would work for me? And to be completely honest, I'm not sure that there is. But as you can see from the remaining runtime of this video, I'm at least going to try. And so, with that in mind, here is my version of 2025's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And so, in trying to blend these two movies together, I will begin my version the same way the new movie did, with a narrator giving us all of the backstory, filling us in up to this point. Snow White was born to a loving king and queen. She was a princess who loved to spend time with her people. Paramount of these people was her best friend, Jonathan, who she grew up with, and we can see that through the opening song and montage. You see, I, like Disney, we both came to the realization that you can't do the prince the way they did in the original. You have to change that. You really do. But unlike Disney, I wanted to keep more of the original music. I wanted to keep the same general story beats that the original hit. So I cheated. I was trying to figure out this puzzle. How do you have a love interest that just enters in the beginning of the movie, is already well established by the end of the movie? And that's by cheating. That's by doing it off screen. Have them grow up together, have their love already be established, so that way when they're singing about loving each other in the very beginning of the movie, there's context behind that. The movie then becomes not about two people meeting and instantly falling head over heels for each other. No, it then becomes about two people who already have deep affection for each other, and they are fighting to keep that, which is a story that I don't think Disney has done so much. I think that would be a fresh thing to do with it. But we'll get back to them. The narrator then continues on and tells us that after the death of the queen, a beautifully enchanting and an enchantingly beautiful woman arrived and married the king. Shortly thereafter, the new queen warned of a coming war and urged the king to go into battle with all the forces he could immediately muster. And Jonathan, who by this point had maybe just turned around 18 years old, gets drafted into this newly formed militia, and they march off to war, but they are never seen again. Years pass, and the queen forces Snow White to get to work as a scullery maid, which is where our story truly begins. Because now we've had our establishing from our newer movie, I want to go back and give us that opening sequence from the original movie. That is the scene where Snow White is out by the wishing well singing to the animals, when suddenly her prince appears. In this movie, it is going to be Jonathan. He is scaling the castle wall like he did when he was a teenager and they first fell for each other. But at this point, it's probably been 4 or 5 years since they've seen each other, since he went off to war, and they are so happy to be reunited. We get that beautiful opening song from the original movie. And after they are reunited, Jonathan is very quickly able to fill Snow White in on what he has been through. There was no war. It was just a trap set by this queen. Just as he is kind of getting into the details of that, maybe even before he reveals that the queen is the one who orchestrated all of this, the queen, after seeing Jonathan scale the wall, orders him to be captured and tried as a deserter. Jonathan does manage to escape with Snow White's help, but he promises that he will come back for her. We'll now move forward, as both of the versions of the movies do, right until Snow White first encounters the dwarves' cottage in the woods. And this is the one part of the movie where I would like to take a little creative license, do something that neither of the movies did. Because on one hand, I liked the original whistle while you work scene. Like, Snow White goes into the cottage. She deduces that, oh, everything's of smaller size in here. It's dirty in here. There's probably a bunch of young boys that live here. And you know what? If I clean the place up, maybe they'll let me stay here. Maybe I'll ingratiate myself to them. That is stuff that makes sense. I don't know why they felt the need to take that out of the new one. It just makes her look clueless. She just enters this house and immediately falls asleep. But then again, on the other hand, in the new version, during Whistle While You Work, this is when she gets to bond with the dwarves, cleaning up the house. Plus, I can imagine it would be very hard in live action to portray a bunch of animals cleaning up a cottage and doing the dishes. I don't think that would look good in live action. So I would like to do a bit of both. In my version, Snow White enters the cottage, finds all the small furniture and beds, and assumes that 7 children live there. And eventually, after a little exploring, she does find a child hiding in a broom closet, scared to death. This will be my version of Dopey. My Dopey does not have dwarfism. He is just a 10 to 12-year-old boy who does not speak. The dwarves found him abandoned and decided to raise him about the time that the war started. Because, like, yeah, why not traumatize and give PTSD to, like, the comic relief character in a kid's movie? That's fun. That's the Disney way. Oh, also worth noting, in my version, it's going to be actors with dwarfism. Like, why couldn't we do that? Why was that so hard? It would have given them so much more personality. It would have given them so much more humanity to see them taken out of the uncanny valley and put into live action. Like, isn't that why we're making live action remakes? Just make it actors. Anyway, meeting this child, meeting Dopey, gives Snow White a basis to believe that there are kids living in this cottage unsupervised. And so she hatches this plan and connects with Dopey. And she cleans the place with Dopey's help and reasons that if she does this, the other children will let her stay with them until she can find her way to Jonathan or until he can find his way to her. So Dopey and Snow White clean the house together in a nice little bonding moment for the two while singing Whistle While You Work. Well, Snow White sings. Dopey mostly whistles. And after a full day of running for her life and cleaning this house, Dopey takes her upstairs to take a nap. And at this point, Dopey goes to intercept the other dwarves who are coming home from a full day in the mines. And wordlessly, Dopey tries to explain to them that there's someone in the house, but she's okay. Don't panic. But of course, there's this whole misunderstanding. The dwarves never seem to understand what Dopey's trying to tell them. That's why they call him Dopey. He's trying to tell them there's someone in the house, and they misunderstand. They assume he's talking about a ghost. So they panic, hijinks ensue, and we get our little introduction where we see all the dwarves' personality as they meet Snow White. And finally, after setting everything straight and sharing a meal together, Snow White tells them of her plan to just stay for a few days until her and Jonathan are able to find each other. And we get probably the most glaring omission from the new movie. We get a beautiful modern rendition of Someday My Prince Will Come. Then we get a whole bunch of stuff from the new movie. The queen learns that she was deceived, throws the huntsman into the dungeon, and gets her truly terrible villain song. Like, every villain has a song in their heart, and we deserve to hear it, but that was bad. That was not good. Jonathan, with all the connections he is now being able to make, being back in the kingdom, is able to find Snow White first. He is the first one to get to her location, and we get a little bit of Snow White and Jonathan not exactly being on the same page after having spent so much time apart. Now, Snow White is thrilled because now they can finally run away together, just leave all of these problems behind. She's kind of done with it all. But Jonathan, after being through everything he's gone through, he wants things to change. He wants to go back and face the queen together and help to install Snow White as the queen he knows that she can be. And Snow White is just not sure if she's ready for that. She's not even sure if she wants that. And after talking it out, after really not being on the same page for the first time since they've seen each other, but maybe the first time in their whole lives, they do reconcile. She gets Jonathan to promise to stay with her, and we get my favorite song in the new movie, A Hand Meets a Hand. But of course, the good times are not going to last for long because Jonathan immediately breaks that promise, just filled with this righteous indignation that things can be better, things can change. Jonathan sneaks out in the night to try and rally a rebellion against the queen, but he is unfortunately captured. Now, he doesn't tell anyone where Snow White is, but he does have a gemstone fall out of his pocket, which is a pretty good indication to the queen that Snow White is somewhere around the old gem mine. Disguising herself and deceiving Snow White, telling her that she was sent from Jonathan to bring her to him, the queen gets Snow White to bite into the poisoned apple just before, dramatic moments before Dopey is able to say his first words of the movie and yell out a warning to Snow White. Dopey, he's observant. He's an observant boy. He's seen how the animals are reacting to this old woman with the apple, and he realizes something is wrong. He tries to warn her, but it's too late. But he is able, with the other dwarves' help and the animals' help, to drive the queen away. But at that point, all Dopey and the dwarves can do is mourn Snow White and try and protect her from the elements in a makeshift glass coffin. A makeshift glass coffin, as if that isn't like an artisan. Why did they just have that? And from here, I really don't deviate that much from the new version of Snow White, because like I said earlier, I thought the ending was the strongest part of the new movie, with the huntsman helping Jonathan to escape. He kisses Snow White to wake her. Snow White confronts her stepmother and uses not violence, but she appeals to the humanity of those around her, using her kindness and compassion as her weapons. I think that was beautiful. Maybe a bit optimistic, but I think that is warranted in this kind of movie. Dang it. Although I will say, the ending, I'm totally happy with the ending. Watching Gal Gadot disintegrate as Snow White peers beyond the veil of reality, and then we just cut from that like nothing ever happened. Maybe we don't do that. That was horrific to watch in the theater. And that is pretty much it for my version. I'll add one more thing, because if you think I cheated by omitting a dwarf, like this is Snow White and the Six Dwarves, well, fine. Quig the crossbowman comes out at the last moment and does a thing for some Deus es Dwarfina. Is everyone happy? There's Seven Dwarfs now. All right. I know we're not happy. We're all grumpy. It's a Snow White movie. But that is truly it. That is it for me and Snow White. I can't wait to never have to think about this movie again, except for one of the next videos I am writing that does include Snow White. But after that, I think the snow clears up. Please let me know in the comments, what do you think of these movies? Do you prefer the original? Do you have that nostalgia for it? Or do you prefer the remake? Do you think it made changes for the better? I'd be genuinely curious to see your answers in the comments below, because I'm kind of in the middle between both of these movies, as you could probably tell from my rewrite. Speaking of the rewrite, I do hope you enjoyed it. This was a tough but fun one to make. It was a weird little puzzle to solve. I don't know if I solved it, but it got close. It kind of looks like the picture on the box as I tried to mine this IP into a gem. In a mine. If you did enjoy it, please do leave a like. Please subscribe for the next one, and I'll see you then. In a mine.